You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by Andrew Ellis. I'm here with a very special guest, a Razorback legend, if I do say so myself, Matt Goodheart. You know him from his playing days. He's now the hitting coach at Southern Arkansas Tech. Did I get that right? Did I say that right?
Southern Arkansas University.
Southern Arkansas University. It's like Southern Arkansas University Tech, right? It's like SAU
Right.
Tech.
Yep, it's the we're like the, I'm not sure the exact word, but the affiliated sister school of the Division II SAU, where a lot of people know my dad coached for a long time.
Gotcha. They threw a lot of just terms out there, and they were like, "This is our school." But yeah, he's like I said, a Razorback legend. Was a part of some awesome Razorback teams, some of the best that I've gotten to watch. I know some teams that a lot of Razorback fans hold near and dear to their heart. Obviously, played in it for a College World Series team in 2019, and what should have been the national title winning team in 2021. I always like to just imagine that when Charlie Welch hit that home run, the season ended right there. Like that was pretty much it. Nothing else happened after that. I choose to remember 2021 like that. I just that's where the season ended. Y'all had a great run, number one overall all year, best team in the country. But Matt, how's life after Razorback baseball been treating you? I know you're still in baseball, but how's life after playing treating you?
Man, it's been good. It's been good. It was hard for me to imagine being as busy as I was playing after hanging up the spikes, but man, I'm still running out of hours throughout the day. So it's been keeping me busy, and it's been good. I've enjoyed it, and of course I always still look for that competitive itch, try to scratch it, but it's been good.
Did you always know you were going to get into coaching? Like when you were growing up playing, were you always kind of think, I'm sure you obviously think, as a player, you think you're never going to end play. You're just going to be playing baseball forever. Did you always kind of have it in the back of your mind that this would be the next step for you, that you'd get into coaching?
I don't know if I'd say always. There was a pretty good chunk of time where I really just put all my eggs in the one basket, being the playing. And part of that, I think, was obviously lucrative to my career, because I put all of my, like I said, put all my eggs into that basket. So it allowed for me to focus on being the best that I could be at that point in my career. But later on, obviously, as I matured and got older, I realized that, hey, it doesn't matter how good you are, you can't play forever. I mean, the greatest of all time doesn't play longer than into their 40s. But I knew I wanted to be in athletics in some capacity. There was a time where I was really weighing back and forth between being a strength conditioning coordinator and being a skill coach, or like a baseball coach. And went back and forth on that. And fortunately, right now here at Tech, I'm able to do a little bit of both. So it's been kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and it's at smaller schools, it's kind of, I mean, as you know, you played at the JUCO level. You played it like I would say you played at the JUCO level, but barely, because like Sanjak, I don't even know if you can really count that as a JUCO. But it's pretty much all hands on deck. Like the hitting coach might also be the guy that's pulling the tarp. He might also be dragging the field. You have to kind of do it all at that level, and so that's pretty sweet. So I want to talk to you about this year's Razorback team and kind of what you see from them, and just the program in general under DVH, under Nate Thompson, and what Matt Hobbs and him have built and kind of what they have going on. But before we do that, I want to take a quick little trip down memory lane through your playing career, because of course, you had a very, very awesome playing career at Arkansas. I mean, you were a huge fan favorite for sure. Were a part of some awesome teams, had some great teammates. Going back to when you were in high school, so you end up going 1 year at Sanjak. Was the plan always to go to Arkansas? Did you always view it as, I'm just doing 1 year JUCO and then I'm getting Arkansas? Or were you kind of is that just kind of the option you had at that point?
Yeah, I've heard this kind of narrative around a while, and I don't necessarily know where it came from. I don't know if it was something somebody said that everybody just kind of bought into or what, but whenever I was a senior in high school, I was pretty much set on going to a good junior college. And, reason being is I think even today, I still think that opens up a lot of opportunities in many different directions for guys. There was very, very little chance of me getting drafted out of high school, but it was still there, just to a small degree. So I wanted to, one, keep the option open that if I went to a good junior college and had a phenomenal year, that I would be draft eligible, and then also have the options to transfer to whatever good 4-year was available to me. I didn't know whether that was going to be 1 or 2 years or anything like that. But I'd committed to San Jack in the fall of my senior year, and was open to the opportunity. What a lot of people don't know is you can sign with a junior college and sign with a NCAA school and go to the NCAA school. It's called dual signing. I had that. I had that in mind also. And then I guess it was sometime during the winter break. I can't remember exactly when. It's been a while now. I ended up going to one of the Arkansas camps, did pretty well, and they pretty much said that there wasn't any money available. And well, I mean, I understand they had pretty much a full recruiting class at that point, and I was like, hey, I understand. I'm going to San Jack anyways. I've already committed. No big deal. Kind of a keep in touch kind of thing. It really wasn't a deal where, hey, you go to San Jack for a year. We're going to grab you after a year. This wasn't like a predetermined plan. In fact, I mean, if you'd asked me at the time, I wasn't set in stone going to Arkansas at all. Not saying that I didn't want to go to Arkansas or anything of that. That would have been great. However, I was very open to any other opportunity that arrived. And anyway, I go to San Jack, have a good year there, and kind of lost my train of thought there. Anyway, went to San Jack for 1 year, had a good year, and they came and watched me during the spring and said, hey, there's an opportunity for you here after 1 year at San Jack. Are you open to that? Absolutely. And one thing led to another, and I had a couple of other opportunities, but I really liked what Arkansas had to offer me in terms of development and an opportunity. It wasn't just because I feel like a lot of fans, the Arkansas fan base and everybody wants me to say it's because I'm a Razorback through and through. I wanted to go to Arkansas from the day I was born. A lot of people don't realize was since my dad was a Division II college coach at the other end of the state, Division I baseball wasn't even really a big deal to me at the time, And then once I got into high school, it was my big goal was to play professional baseball. And I was going to do whatever I needed to do in order to obtain that goal. So, I go and I hear what Arkansas has to offer. And I said, you know what? I think this place has the best to offer me in terms of helping me achieve my goal. And, what I didn't necessarily realize at the time was my going to Arkansas and being there for as long as I did, doing what I did, ended up being, one of, if not the best decision I've ever made in my playing career. And the family aspect of it, the friendships and relationships that I developed while I was there, something that I can't trade for anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think DVH is the one who basically framed it like, oh, we knew Matt Goodheart was coming. We just were going to, we sent him over to our feeder school, basically, kind of framed it that way where it was like, oh, you were going to go to Arkansas no matter what. But that's interesting that you actually had some options. And I mean, if you go to San Jack, it's not like San Jack just takes any old random guy. So I'd imagine you had some other opportunities. Were there any other SEC schools that were like really on your radar? Like, did we almost see Matt Goodheart, the Ole Miss DH or something like that?
Let's see. So not out of high school. Out of high school, I was under a rock, essentially. I hit, it was, it was kind of interesting. I hit like 590 with 7 home runs and set a bunch of records. And I think I had a couple of just that there aren't listed stats that were just kind of wild where I only swung and missed at like 4 or 5 pitches throughout the season. Not that I had more strikeouts than I had swing and misses my senior year, I think, because of pitches I got rung up on out of the zone, things like that. And like, I think the biggest school that offered me out of high school was probably UCA, I think. And I had plenty of junior college options that reached out to me that either reached out to me or I kind of reached out to them saying, hey, I want to go to the junior college because that's really what I wanted to do. And at San Jack, pretty much all the recruiting went through the coaching staff. So there are probably some options, a little bit more interest than I'm fully aware of even to this day. But there were some schools that I know were interested at the very least, like Baylor, I think A&M. Let's see. I think there are some other schools that had reached out about the potential of me leaving after 1 year, but I don't fully know exactly what the conversations were like between my coaching staff at San Jack and those coaching staffs there. I know one of the things that was different was Arkansas reached out directly to me because we had already spoken before. And then once I let the San Jack coaches know, hey, Arkansas's reached out, this kind of thing, it just seemed like the process went along a lot quicker. So I don't know if that's a direct reflection of how much interest was shown in me as a player at that time, or if it was just kind of a different path to get to the same end result. But I was told by the San Jack coaches that there were some other, at the time, Power 5 schools that were ready to give me money. So I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, man. I mean, I would say firmly the right decision in terms of what JUCO to attend. I mean, like I said, I think if San Jack is not the number one JUCO program in the country, it's 2 or 3. It's up there. I mean, it seems like they send 8 guys to SEC schools just about every year, like the entire lineup. I'm sure you played with some pretty good players there. And obviously Dave Van Horn also has a background as a JUCO player who made his way to Arkansas, and I think he coached at the JUCO level as well. Nate Thompson, same kind of thing, coached in JUCO for a while, been in that realm a lot. Do you think that had anything to do with maybe your interest or maybe their interest in you? Like, is there kind of like a general respect between like the guys who start at JUCO and then go to the SEC, and your team? A lot of your teammates at Arkansas had a very similar path, and so was that kind of what made it a little bit better at Arkansas? Is that not only are you going to play for coaches who respect the JUCO level, understand that grind, but a lot of your teammates like Brady Slavens, Jalen Battles, Braden Webb, all these guys went through a similar path to you. Like, did that kind of help your transition at Arkansas?
Yeah, I'm sure it did. And the coaching staff at Arkansas is phenomenal. They have as much experience as anybody. It's oftentimes regarded that the junior college guys are just these dirty, gritty grinders because they lived on a school bus and brought a bologna, as Coach Van Horn would say, brought a bologna sandwich every day to eat and play. I think my dad himself said it best whenever he said, it's like, I always liked the junior college guys because I knew that they wanted to play. So, and they always showed how bad they wanted to play. So I think that's kind of the what's the word, the connotation that comes with being a junior college grinder, as they say. And that's one of the things my dad even accredits to some of his success in the Division II world was, according to him, he was one of the first guys that really started honing in on recruiting the junior college players. And I'm sure that had something to do with my choice of going junior college. And once I became a coach, I kind of asked him, I was like, what did you do that kind of set in motion your success? And one of the things he said was, I started recruiting a lot of junior college guys, and I was like, I wonder, were there not many guys at your time? And he started coaching at SAU in 1980. Were there not a whole lot of junior college guys getting recruited at that time? He said, no, not really. They tried to get a lot of guys out of high school. I was like, well, what's the deal with that? And he's like, I really couldn't come up with a good answer. Why not? They've had 2 years of playing experience. It's been, like I said, gritty and a grind. After 2 years, they need a place to go and they want to keep playing. So they're kind of desperate, so to say, to find places to go a lot of times, especially back then whenever there weren't nearly as many options. And it just seemed kind of like a win-win. You come in, get a good player for 2 years. And, I think that holds true still today, in a lot of aspects. So, there have been a lot of guys go from the junior college realm to, high level baseball, and accredit a lot of that grind to what they were able to do further on in their career. I think one of the guys that kind of paved the way before me was, Jax Biggers. He was at Cisco and came in for Cisco and was just was just a stud at Arkansas, played with a broken finger. I think that just is the perfect depiction of what a junior college grinder kind of does, So, yeah, I think it's been good for the landscape of college baseball as a whole.
Yeah, it is weird because like in other sports, I feel like JUCO is just not as prevalent these days. In football, there was a while, 10, 15 years ago, it seemed like every SEC team was bringing in JUCO guys and like Last Chance U and all that. But baseball, I feel like it's still living. Like it's still a very real alternative. Bryce Harper went to a JUCO, I'm pretty sure. I mean, his a little bit different situation. But I think it's interesting that you said that playing D1 baseball wasn't something like, because, we always, growing up, or at least where I was growing up, everyone was always like saying like, oh, I'm D1. Like it was like a thing, like, oh, to be D1, play D1 baseball. And I think a lot of kids that are 16, 17 years old making these decisions view it through that lens of like, I got to go to the best possible school. I got to go to the highest. But really, like you were saying, go where you're going to play. You know what I mean? Like go play, because especially if you're a hitter, it's really hard to get that development. It's hard to get better if you're not hitting. Maybe if you're a pitcher, you can get drafted throwing 8 innings these days if you got the good stuff and all that. But like if you're a hitter, and you're going to go somewhere where you're not going to play every day, it's really hard to develop. It's really hard to take your game to that next level. And so for you, it probably worked out better for you than it would have if you had gone to like A&M out of high school and you just were kind of the odd man out and not starting every day. Would have probably not worked out as well for you. I've got to get, so now going to your Arkansas career, I've got to get your side of the story, because this is another story that like has been told in the fan base and told by Dave Van Horn. And I don't know if I've ever heard your side of it. The contact situation. So you start the year, and everyone kind of knew you were going to be a good player for Arkansas. You crushed it at San Jack. You're kind of projected in the lineup every day. Early in the year, I don't remember exactly how it all played out, but I don't know if it was like a slow start, but you really started to catch fire in SEC play. And from what I can remember, I guess it was 2019, you went and got some type of eye procedure or something. Maybe it was contact something. And all of a sudden, you just became Barry Bonds. Like you just started raking from then on out. Was it that simple? You just needed to get something cleared up with your vision, and all of a sudden, you're raking.
I think there's elements of truth to it. Let's put it that way. I think I actually went back and saw the little post game presser whenever Coach Van Horn actually mentioned it, and I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head. It wasn't. So it was the day before the SEC opener against Mizzou at home. And I remember, let's see, I can't even remember why I went to the eye doctor. I don't know if it was kind of hey, I haven't been to the eye doctor in however long, whatever. I'd already worn contacts. I want to say maybe it was a deal where I was talking to Corey, our trainer, about kind of what contacts I have, that kind of thing. And he's like, man, we need to kind of, apparently it's old technology, something of that effect. Ended up going to the eye doctor, ended up getting, I bumped up my prescription a little bit. So I did get stronger contacts, and then also got some different kinds. So I got dailies instead of like the monthly ones. And what I noticed was that my eyes didn't get nearly as dry as often, especially at night. One of the things that I feel like I'd always and still always kind of had issue with was picking up spin at night, just picking things up at night. It's always been a little more difficult for me just because I didn't play at night as much, especially at San Jack. Pretty much all of our games were during the day. It seemed like that seems to be a pretty common thing. I mean, even us, we don't even have lights. Pretty much every game in our region is played during the daytime. I think there's some travel accommodation set with that, but and something else to note with that is I'm told that a lot of like Hispanic and Latin players that come over from whether it be Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Central America, they struggle transitioning to playing night games because they never have played night games. It's actually a pretty strong difference in terms of their total production at the plate whenever they transition over, and they're aware of this. So it's that's one thing that to keep in mind too. But whenever I got these, my eyes didn't get nearly as dry at night, so I was able to pick it up a little bit better at night. And we obviously play a pretty decent amount of night games whenever I was at Arkansas. So I think that helped some. And I'm not even sure how the story got, kind of leaked or whatever, but it helped. But I'm not going to say that that's what changed everything. I think I was already hitting probably what, 240, 250, something like that, just doing okay. Um, most of my struggles, they were more in my head than anything else.
Mm.
And maybe getting new contacts aided a little bit in some confidence, and have one good game, kind of build off of it. You have one good game against whoever. The Friday night guy for Mizzou at that time was a guy I played with at Sanjak, so I had an idea of how he's going to pitch me. It's like, okay, I had 2 doubles against the SEC Friday night guy. I belong here, and you just kind of build off of that. So
yeah.
Did
that Missouri team have Sycamore? That Sycamore kid that was disgusting. I think he got drafted in like the first, like second or third round or something like that.
Yep, he ended up going the second day.
Gotcha. Yeah, that Missouri team. I think that series. I think y'all swept them, but it was like every game was like 3-2, 2-1 or whatever. So you picked a great time to start raking at Arkansas, man. So 2019, obviously, I think that 2019 team I think gets lost in the shuffle a lot because people remember the 2018, the drop foul ball, of course. That's one that, like, unfortunately, none of us will forget. Everyone remembers 2021 and that kind of special, what felt like a dream season for so much of it. Everyone remembers that. I feel like people don't realize that 2019 team might have been the best team out of those 3. Like, that team was really good. I mean, you think about all the guys you played with, Isaiah Campbell going on Friday nights, really just a special group. And, by the end of the year, you're hitting, I think at one point you end up leading. I don't know if you finished the year leading the team in hitting, but we're right there in the thick of it. I mean, it was like Heston Kjerstad batting second, Casey Martin hitting fourth, and you're like right there in the middle of it. So going into 2020, of course, you didn't realize a pandemic was coming. Were you going into 2020 thinking, this is my last year at Arkansas, I'm about to rake through my entire junior year, get drafted, and go on to greener pastures? Did you go in with that kind of mindset?
Somewhat. I wouldn't say necessarily that, I was going to be this big time pick. One thing that we're leaving out is I also had the shoulder thing happen in 2019. And once that happened, I knew that I was never going to be as valuable as I was, because I knew I got it pretty good, unfortunately. And I didn't know how long my recovery was going to be. And it held me back quite a bit for a while in terms of, at the very least, throwing, defense, that kind of thing. I don't know, February-ish of the following year after my surgery, I could swing the bat pretty much back to normal. It just kind of been a while since I'd seen live pitching. So I started off relatively slow. I didn't do anything in the fall of the COVID year. And then by the time, that's one of the more frustrating things about what happened that year was, I think it was the week that the season got canceled man, I was feeling it. I was back to where I was. I think I can't remember what I did against numbers wise against South Alabama, but I hit one that was like, okay, I hit that one pretty good. And then ended up the last game of the year, I think it was against Grand Canyon, hit to this day the hardest ball I've ever hit in my career. And I was like, it felt like it
you
didn't
pimped
matter
that one.
what.
I remember that one. You pimped that one.
That one felt good. It felt like it was just, I was in one of those zones where it felt like it didn't matter who was throwing or what they were throwing. I was on offense and they were on defense. They were more afraid of me than I was of them. And that's a dangerous feeling to have whenever you're in the box. And obviously I try to instill that in any of my players anytime I can, because it's, again, an unmatched feeling. And whenever you have that feeling, that's when good things are going on. But and then of course the year gets canned, and that I didn't know necessarily how that was going to affect things at first. But then whenever I heard it's going to be a 5-round draft, I was like, yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all. So, and then I found out, Cape Cod League wasn't happening, things like that. So I was scrambling just to, get reps in different places. Yeah. And that's when you had several Arkansas guys playing in that Perfect Timing League in Northwest Arkansas. It was just the wild variety of players. You had everyone from high school seniors to SEC Friday night guys in the same game. You had future big leaguers pitching against, guys that are, freshmen at Ecclesia. I think it was just unbelievable. So you didn't go from like, I remember it was like Jordan Wicks was at K-State, and he came and pitched in it, and he's a big leaguer now. And he faced me, Christian Franklin, and then like a freshman at Ecclesia or something like that, and then a high school kid. And it was like, what is going on? This is wild. I've never seen anything like this. And anyway, I ended up going to the Coastal Plains League and had a good time out there, developed some good relationships, and came back for what was academically my senior year and my junior year on the field. And they extended it back to the 20-round draft. To be honest, same deal. I didn't really know what was in front of me. I was going to be an older signee if I was going to get drafted. They weren't in love with my health history as it was. So that's usually combine old age with, not necessarily the greatest health. And oftentimes that kind of is the nail in the coffin, so to say. So I kind of expected what I got, which was an opportunity. I got an opportunity and, tried to ride the wave as long as I could.
Yeah, it's weird looking back at that 2020 season, and you mentioned how you were kind of starting to, kick it into gear a little bit, because I feel like there were a lot of people on your team that were the exact opposite. Like I remember Wicklander that year was like really struggling, and we later found out, I don't think he realized at that point that he was diabetic, and so he was probably at that point dealing with all kind of health things that we didn't realize. Kevin Kopps probably wouldn't have been on the travel roster. Y'all were about to go to Mississippi State that weekend, and I remember it being a conversation because he had really been struggling. I think they tried to give him like a get back start against Grand Canyon. He gave up like 6 runs, and it was like, man, this Kopps guy, like I don't know, but the ship might have sailed. I think he was going to kind of get phased out. If that season plays out, there's a very good chance that Kevin Kopps would have just went and sold cars somewhere. Like I don't think he would have. He definitely wouldn't have ever had the season that he was going to have, because he would have been out of eligibility. Casey Opitz probably wouldn't got drafted that year. Like there's so many what ifs that happened with that 2020 team, and I think y'all were going to be awesome too. I mean, you had still Casey Martin and Heston Kjerstad. He might have won the damn Golden Spikes that year. There were so many weird things going on with that team. It would have been fun to see that season play out, and so that's like kind of always we'll have to a what if about. You mentioned getting a pro opportunity. This is another thing that I feel like if my memory serves me correctly. Were you playing in the Cape when that happened? Like during the draft and all that? Were you out there in the Cape? Were you like communicating with the Phillies like while you're getting ready for a game in the Cape Cod League?
Pretty much. That's pretty much exactly how it was. And often that's not at all uncommon. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure if this number's changed at all, but at one point, 81% of players that played in Cape Cod get drafted. Which is that's pretty astounding. 8 out of 10 players are playing professional baseball the following year, or something to that effect. And it's a pretty common thing. It was ongoing. Pretty much all the communication was actually going through my agent at the time. And I remember it was warm-ups before the game. The manager there is cool. I was like, hey, just letting you know, I'm kind of expecting a call. It's just kind of one of those things. If I have to take it, he's like, hey, I get it. You don't have to explain. And turned out it is between batting practice and the game. My agent at the time called me and was like, hey, do you want to be a Philly? And I was like, I didn't have what's the word? What's going on? And anyway, explained what was going on. And at this point, I was looking for opportunities because I didn't hear my name called during the draft, and obviously wanted to sign. This was before, looking back on it, I didn't know what was going to happen in terms of what NIL was going to be. I knew the new building was going to be nice, but I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, things like that. And looking back on it, if I'd have known exactly how my pro career was going to go, then I would have strongly considered coming back. I probably would have gotten paid more, to be honest. But,
I mean, dude, there's a lot of kids that probably take pay cuts by signing professionally just because, with the NIL where it's at, and you hear rumors about numbers and stuff like that. It's It's pretty wild. But I bet the going rate for an all SEC hitter probably would have been more than what you signed for with Philly, at least today. I don't know how it was back then, but
I
I
don't
think today you
know.
would have done okay.
Baseball wise, I don't know really at all numbers wise what's going on with them. I hear about basketball and football and things like that, and it's just blowing my mind. It's not even doesn't even make sense. But I guess the ringing question is, do I have the same opportunity to play professionally after that last year as I
Yeah.
did my junior year? And at the time, I would have told you I didn't think so. Looking back on it, I
Right.
don't know. Hindsight's 2020, but um, if I knew I was going to have the same opportunity for after another year at Arkansas, I probably would have played another one.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to tell because I mean, you play another year. If you're going to be a year older, you pretty much have to be way better. That's kind of how the scouts view it. If you're getting a year older, you better be taking strides and all that. But I don't want to have you like now coming after this and like really thinking about this for a long time. But that 2022 team was pretty good.
Right.
Obviously finished their year in Omaha. They end up losing a 2-0 game in the semifinals. I'm just saying, one swing of the bat might have been the difference in that team winning the Natty. I don't. I kid for the most part, but who knows how it would have played out. But no, it is very interesting. Your 2021 season. So again, that 2021 team. I mean, you don't lose a single SEC series. I think we've all figured out at this point that's harder to do than just winning a national title. Like, there's going to be one team every year that wins a national title. There's not going to be a team every year that doesn't lose a single series. Pretty unreal. Just it was a crazy journey, and like I said, it felt like a dream season for you personally. So obviously, you're coming off of a great sophomore year at Arkansas. You went through one of the hottest stretches I think I've ever seen a hitter go through during that 2021 season, where I think you hit like 6 home runs in 5 games or like something stupid like this. You know what I'm talking about? It was like around the A&M series, and not that you weren't like a power hitter, but like 6 home runs in 6 games or whatever it was. It was like you were on like a different level. You also went through one of the worst slumps I've seen someone go through, like all in the same year. It was kind of crazy. And I remember in the SEC tournament, you kind of breaking out of that slump. But how do you explain that to someone who doesn't, maybe doesn't play baseball at this level or hasn't obviously been in the SEC like that? How do you explain that to someone where a guy like yourself, who's a 300 hitter, can have such a hot streak and such a cold streak within the span of like 6 weeks? Like, is that just a testament to how hard hitting is at this level?
Yeah, to this day, I still don't fully, to this day, I still don't fully know how to rationalize it in common words. But at that point, one thing I didn't do very well was, I think I can't remember who I heard this from. It may have been Trevor Ezell, actually. He's kind of my savant, but keep your highs low and your lows high, kind of a thing. Whenever I was riding the wave, like I was on top of the world, and then as soon as it kind of went south, then I started getting in my head, and that's something that you can't do against good hitting. I'm sorry, good pitching. I was a little bit better about that once I got a little bit older, played a little bit of pro ball, but yeah, like I said, I was on top of the world after that. I think it was like a 7-day stretch. It was, at the one of the games against Pine Bluff, and then the weekend series against UAPB. I'm not, sorry, against A&M, and it's the part of that I think started to spiral downhill was, yes, I had an amazing week and I was happy about that. But you go back and look at the games and the series. The one at bat that I wish I'd have gotten back was struck out with a runner on third with less than 2 outs in the game against A&M that we lost to sweep. And after going, I think it was like 11 for 17 or something like that, with like however many home runs. I had like, I don't know, 15 something RBI. I can't remember exactly. After all that, the thing that rung to me the most was not getting it done in the at bat that I needed to the absolute most. And you can't do things like that and be consistently as good as you can be. Looking back on it, I understand that obviously now. But I just, I was like, I couldn't get it out of my head at the time. And then, something to go along with the slump was I was still getting on base. I was taking some walks. It was just, I could not square it up like I needed to. and I could not hit it where they weren't in all the stretch. So it was like a combination of not being that feeling of not being on top of the world, and then facing good pitching. And then there's a little bit of bad luck involved too. These were conversations I had with Coach Thompson and Coach Van Horn, and I hit a relatively good chunk of baseballs pretty hard at people that just resulted in outs. Because of something like that, I've actually gone into working on. I guess I can expel it now, but I'm actually developing my own offensive metric for my program here that combines on base percentage, slugging percentage, stolen bases, and hard hit balls that result in a decrease in batting average. So that can be reach on an error, any out, anything like that, and it's all weighted to kind of help determine how well it helps the team. So if you got a guy that's doing a lot of things right, getting on base a lot, but just has nothing to show for it, this metric kind of helps delineate that. Which if anybody wants to talk to me about it, I can talk to them later about it. But anyway, so I mean, if you look specifically at average, then you're right. It was not good at all. But there were some other things that made it not quite as bad as it looked, which were, how, hard hit balls at people and getting on base. I still took my walks and important at bats and things like that. But at the same time, there's some stuff that I wish I could go back and change. And, it happens. I think as Steve Springer said, if you don't go 0 for 20 times in your career, you didn't play long enough. That's just the nature of the beast. I mean, I think these guys forget that, I think it's commonplace to forget that every single pitcher that you face in the SEC is a potential professional arm. And then you talk about the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the weekend starters, and then the closers. Those guys are future big leaguers a lot of times. You go back and just in 2019 and 2021 alone, look at the Friday night starters that we faced, and it's just a laundry list of elite arms. So I think it's just a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I think Kumar Rockers, who you got a huge hit off of in the SEC tournament. Maybe it wasn't Kumar, but it was that day where y'all faced. It was like Wicklander versus Kumar in Hoover, and so it's like you get a hit, you get an opposite field double off Kumar Rocker. It's like you can't tell me that you were capable of hitting him that day, but then a week ago when you were 0 for 4, you just couldn't hit this guy. It's like if you can hit Kumar Rocker, you can hit pretty much anybody. I can't believe you just referenced Steve Springer. That is a name that I have not heard in a while. When I was in high school, he came and spoke to like our baseball team, and I was a PO in high school. I only pitched. I was garbage. I threw like 77, but I remember we had to listen to Steve Springer talk, and I remember being like annoyed that we had to do it. But I came away from it. He completely changed the way that I viewed baseball, hitting, just everything. Just hearing him talk for 30 minutes. So that's funny that you referenced a little quote there. But speaking of that, kind of like the ups and downs of baseball. Us fans, us psychos that are sitting here on our couches watching you guys trying to hit 98, we're sitting here pointing our finger and being like, this guy is garbage. He goes 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts. He's garbage. But really it is like, I feel like with hitting, you kind of just have to live with the highs and lows. But I think a lot of times the fan base, Nate Thompson has become such a polarizing figure where, your 2019s, and another thing is people look at the wrong numbers. You mentioned how batting average. I'm a big proponent. Batting average is like the most overrated statistic in baseball, especially these days, because we were told growing up, you hit 300, you're good. That's how you determine how someone's good, if he's hitting 300 or not. But there's walks, there's slugging, there's hard hit balls at someone, like all that stuff. But I think for the fans, a lot of them, they see, Matt Goodheart hit 340 as a sophomore. Nate Thompson was good then. Now he hits 270. Now Nate Thompson's bad. I'm not asking you to give a defense of Nate Thompson, but could you give the fans some type of insight into maybe his philosophy and sort of some of the conversations you've heard from him or what you learned from him as a hitter, and how it's really not that simple of when I hit bad, it's because Nate Thompson sucks, and when I hit good, it's because Nate Thompson is good.
Yeah, shoot. You said I don't have to give a defense. I'll give a defense. I think Nate Thompson was one of, if not the best hitting coach I've ever had. And, you know, for starters, he's a phenomenal human being. He's a phenomenal human being. He's a great leader. And, you know, it's disappointing to hear and read some of the things that people say about him, just because I know him personally. And coaching in general is not easy. It's not easy. In fact, I think coaching has been harder for me than it was playing. Why? Because I don't have control. I can, you know, I can set up the drills. I can tell a guy to feel like this in order to hit, and, you know, but I'm not the one doing it. And sometimes it's been difficult to kind of control what you can control. Whenever I was hitting, I can control hitting. That's how it works. But as a coach, you know, you can only do so much, if that makes sense. And, you know, it's very complicated too, because every single guy is different. Every single guy is different. What they have to think in order to produce X, Y, and Z is different. And then you compound that with the fact that they're facing the best pitching that amateur baseball has to offer. These guys, I mean, we're talking about facing arms that are literally Cy Young candidates within the next few years. They're facing Paul Skeens. You know, they had Hagen Smith, thank the good Lord. But these guys are going up there and just dominating against the best the world has to offer. You know, it's dumbfounding to me that, you know, you can look and blame one aspect of anything, you know. And I think part of it too is you look at the standard that's been set in other aspects too. They're one of the best defensive teams in the nation every year. They're one of the best pitching teams in the nation every single year. So it's just it's wild to me that the standard has been set so high. Yeah. And you have to realize how difficult it is to bring it in and day out. And, you know, it's hard. It's difficult. And I would be hard pressed to believe that there's someone better for the job. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's cool that you mentioned the pitching side of it, because I think a lot of times we view it through the Arkansas lens, and we don't account for the opponent Arkansas is facing. As a hitter, and you have a hitter's mentality, you're a hitter's coach, you might disagree, but I always view that if a pitcher executes pitches, when they're throwing the way that these guys in the SEC are throwing, you're kind of shit out of luck. You know what I mean? If you're facing Hagen Smith, and he's able to throw that back foot slider with 2 strikes, you're probably swinging and missing. Like, that's not because your hitting coach sucks. It's not because your swing is messed up. If a dude like Hagen Smith is up there and he's pitching and he's locating and commanding the way that he's capable of, you're going to have a tough time. And so I think a lot of times with fans, and really not just fans, I'm not trying to knock Arkansas fans and call them idiots. Like, it's really all of us that watch baseball. I mean, if we're at a bar and there's a game on the TV, we're having our thoughts of what's going on. But one at-bat I reference all the time, because a lot of times I'll hear this narrative that, with runners on second and third and 1 out, if someone at Arkansas strikes out, people say, well, it's because Nate Thompson told him to try and hit a home run. And I'm like, I was like, not only does Nate Thompson not do that, there is not a hitting coach in the country who's like, hey, second and third, 1 out. Let's just try and go deep sea fishing. Let's just not worry about getting that runner in. Like, it's just not a thing that would happen. If the guy struck out, it's because he struck out. But Peyton Stovall, in one of the biggest at-bats of the year last year that led to Arkansas getting eliminated, Peyton Stovall was up, bases loaded, 1 out, and he strikes out at a breaking ball in the dirt. Is it because Peyton Stovall's approach is wrong? No. I mean, the dude hit 340. He hits the ball. He hits line drives all over the field. I mean, he's going to be playing pro ball for 10 years. Is it because there was a fundamental issue with the hitting approach? I don't think so. I think a guy executed a pitch. He swung and missed at it, and that's the game we play. And you just kind of have to live with it. And it's not saying you should people should see guys strike out and be like, oh, it's fine. I mean, he's facing a good pitcher. But I'm like, sometimes it really does just come down to that. It's that simple. It's not a whole, I'm pulling off, or my approach is wrong. Sometimes pitchers execute pitches. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, think about the goal in mind with a lot of these pitchers is you tend to have, this is kind of how I bucket it. You tend to bucket guys into guys that get people out with deception, and then guys that get people out with their stuff, and then the big leaguers are essentially able to do both, right? So when you got guys that can throw a fastball north of 94, 95, and then are able to throw a slider that looks identical to it until it's 3/4 of the way there. What a lot of people don't understand is you can't just read and react. It's not possible. It's not a thing like, hey, there's some people can do it. No, like you have to be ready. You have to pick a pitch and hope that you got it. I hear all day, and I hear all day, especially with some of the youth athletes of it. Don't guess. I might have even got this from Steve Springer. You have to guess.
Yeah.
If you don't guess that, like, hey, I am anticipating this pitch being right here, this pitch specifically being right here, you are not likely to hit it because that's how good their stuff is. So then you got guys like, I remember, let's see, 2019 Mississippi State, Ethan Small. I think his first name is Ethan Small.
Lefty.
He threw a fastball that just literally went like this. Like it felt like it went upwards like a rise ball. And it wasn't deceptive in the sense that you didn't know what pitch it was. It was deceptive in the sense that it just was higher every single time than you perceived it to be. And it wasn't a deal where it was just me and, a couple other guys. I mean, I think he struck out our first 7 hitters or something ridiculous. And it wasn't just absolutely insane velocity, but he was the Friday night guy for a premier Mississippi State for a reason, and if you don't, in a situation like that, you have to feel like that pitch is knee high for it to be belt high. That's how incredibly difficult your perception lies to you whenever you're facing pitching like this. You face like a left-handed pitcher that throws a good breaking ball. You have to hunt a breaking ball that looks like it's going behind you in order for it to be a pitch that you can hit. If it looks like it's going to be a strike, it will hit a right-handed hitter. That's how much they're moving. I like the sports science thing that they did on ESPN that time, where they literally dissect the amount of time you have to make decisions, and you have 0.04 of a second to make a decision to swing, and then like another 0.02 of a second to actually swing. So in essence, you have to make a decision and swing in like half a second, quite literally half a second. So it's difficult in theory, it's difficult in practice. So it's, kind of what more do you want? And on top of that, we're, kind of drawing it back to Coach Thompson. He has to teach 9 to 15 guys all how to be successful against something that very, very difficult to be very successful at. So it's like, man, give the guy a break, give the guy a break. I love him to death. So there may be a little bit of bias there, but I mean, he was pivotal in my becoming a good hitter. And, I think physically I had some things that I was inclined to be good at, but before I got to Arkansas, I didn't have an approach. I was just good enough to go hit. That's just, like, I could go up there and I could see 80-mile-an-hour fastballs, and didn't matter where it was. I could just hit it. I could see hanging breaking balls and just hit it. But then my first fall inter squad, I think it was, I faced Campbell. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't know what to do. And then we had the fall outside competition against Wichita State. My first 2 at-bats were both strikeouts on back foot breaking balls with a runner on third, less than 2 outs. And that's whenever, he explains, like, hey, listen, so think about this for a second. You're hitting whatever, 5th or 6th, I can't remember. But you're hitting for, would you consider us to be an elite offense based on what you know in your, yeah, okay. You got runners on 2nd and 3rd. This was the first AB, I think. 2nd and 3rd with a base open at 1st. If you were a pitcher, would you throw you a meatball down the middle? I was like, honestly, no, I definitely wouldn't. In fact, no, if I knew me, I probably would have walked me. He goes, then why did you think you were going to get a strike? Mm-hmm. I was like, I never thought about that before. And, that was one of the first big learning moments that I ever had in my career there. And it was thanks to kind of the offensive structure that was set in place. And it's because of things like that, I became a better hitter from then on for the rest of my career. So.
It's interesting to hear you talk about some of this stuff because I have my perception of it and just kind of watching the program and knowing some of these guys and talking to some guys like you, talking to guys in the program. But it's cool to hear someone who actually played for Nate Thompson, actually played for Arkansas and went out there and did it, faced the SEC pitching to talk about it this way all the time. I was watching a game with my dad the other day, and it was like it was Kendall Diggs was up, and it was maybe a 2-1 count, 3-1 count, and pitcher throws a breaking ball right down the middle. And, of course, Kendall Diggs takes it. And my dad's like, oh, you got to crush that. And I'm like, 2-1, 3-1. You think he's sitting slider? You think he's just sitting on he's looking, as you know, you're sitting there and that's your moment. You get to be a little selfish. You're looking for one fastball, one spot or whatever. And so all the time I see fans react to things that I don't think they should be reacting to. Guy throws you first pitch breaking ball. He executes it. You tip your hat. You say, all right, cool. I'll take that. Strike one. Make a mistake this pitch or whatever. The times you should be upset, or not really you should be upset, when it's 3-1 and you get a fastball right down the middle and you pop it up, that's whenever as a fan I'm like, we've got to get a better swing there. And really, I don't think us as fans, as people that aren't playing, should really be critiquing this kind of stuff. But it is so funny when I hear people complain about specific things and I'm like, I don't think these people have any idea what they're talking about. Like, I don't think they really have any concept of what the task is you guys are going to have to achieve. Matt, I told you I wasn't going to keep you long, and we're coming up on a damn hour. I really didn't plan on doing this, but it just kind of worked out where, we were riffing, and you gave us some really good insight, man. I really appreciate that. Before I let you get out of here, I got a couple rapid fire questions I want to ask you. One, just like, who were your boys on the team? Like, who are your closest friends when you were playing at Arkansas?
That's a good one. I was there I was there for a few years, so I've got a few names in mind. Well, 2019, Zach Plunk and Trevor Ezel were my roommates, and they were both like kind of almost like mentors to me because they were both significantly older to me. I called, jokingly, I called Trevor Dad, and I called Zach Uncle Zach. So it was just kind of a running joke. A lot of the guys called Trevor Dad just because he was an old soul. He's the guy that. He's in his grad year and he shows up drinking a coffee and he's got a beard and it's hilarious. But they were great. Let's see. I would consider me and Heston pretty good friends. We were the same age. Me and Marty, Casey Martin, we're still friends, and we also got to play pro ball together for a little bit. So we got to keep that going. Kevin Copps was my roommate for a while. Kevin and I are really close. Let's see. Brady Slavens and I were roommates on the road in 2021, so we were pretty close that year too. And that's been one of the things about the culture. There's that you're not just like very, very rarely are there any just negative thoughts towards your teammates, and it's great. It's great. Like 2021 especially is just, pretty much every guy was there for each other. And I think that's one of the reasons, we were so successful. Everybody wanted everybody to be good, even if there was a dispute at some point off the field or something to that effect, it got handled. And then the next time they got into the game, it's like, hey, I want you to be good. And I think that's why, again, guys were so successful. Guys that came off the bench and were successful when we were fired up for them. Because it wasn't about us, or it wasn't about me. It was about the team. And, it's hard for me to just sit and pick a few names here and there because that's it was such a good culture. And, I'm sure if anybody hears this and I left them out, I apologize in advance. You're my boy.
You're going to get texts from like Christian Franklin, Jack Kinley, all these guys. You're like, screw you, man. But no, that what you just described is very interesting because I think with this particular, the Arkansas team this year, first base is kind of a spot where they're kind of platooning there. You're going to have, Cam Kozel, Rocco Pepe moving around. Souza might platoon a little bit. The outfield, they've got like 5 outfielders for 3 spots. And with the way Kahio Aloy's swinging, I think he's kind of locked up DH. I don't think anybody's getting any DH reps anytime soon. But I think it's going to kind of take Arkansas is going to have basically 11 to 12 position players each weekend who are going to get starts, who are going to get at-bats. And so it's kind of going to take that everyone coming to the yard just ready to do whatever they can. You might come off the bench and play 2 innings of first base, and then the next day you might get 4 ABs. Like, I think all these guys, and there's so many talented guys. I mean, how do you look at Rocco Pepe, who's hit .300 his entire career, has all these accomplishments, and you're like, hey, you're basically our pinch hit option off the bench, and you might get one start this weekend. I don't know how like I don't envy Dave or Nate having to make these decisions and have these conversations, but I think what you described is kind of what is the secret sauce with Arkansas baseball, and why no matter what the pieces are, no matter if they've got the pitching, they've got the hitting, maybe they're weak in this position, they find a way to make it work because you just have 27 dudes all committed to the same thing. And so I think that's kind of what sets it apart. But your relationship with Dave Van Horn, we haven't talked a ton about Dave Van Horn, and it's funny because when I talk to pitchers, like I talked to Jake Faraday last year, and I was like, hey, what's your relationship with like DVH like? And he was like, I can count on one hand the amount of times I've had a real conversation with Dave, because he doesn't talk to the pitchers. He just really doesn't. I don't know if you noticed that during your time. Every pitcher I've talked to is like, never talk to Dave, never, do not have any relationship. And then I talked to a middle infielder, and they're like, oh, he was at the birth of my first son. I talk to Dave every day or whatever. I think Dave clearly is a little bit more biased towards the infielders. But you personally, you're in a little bit of a weird spot because you're not a pitcher, but you're not a middle infielder. So it's like, did you and Dave have like a relationship, or was it just kind of strictly player coach, yes sir, no sir type of thing?
Let's see. That's kind of a difficult question. We, I mean, obviously we had a player coach relationship. We spoke. He's not big on he's not big on a lot of small talk, I think is a good way of putting it. He stays busy, and obviously he's always got a lot going on. And whenever we're on the field, like when we're on the field, baseball and planning ahead is on his mind. Like I would consider a genius when it comes to seeing things ahead of time, being one step ahead, and being a coach now, it's easy for me to say how easy it is to be so isolated and focused on things like that other things going on don't happen as much, so, but at the same time, I wouldn't consider, it's not like people disliked him or anything like that. So that, don't put words in my mouth. It's more of like kind of like a GM, kind of managerial, where, it's kind of managerial, but at the same time, he would provide some nuggets for individual players on different things, especially defensively, base running, things like that, some of the fundamentals if they were needed. And, when it comes to taking care of business on and off the field, he runs a tight ship and he does a phenomenal job at it. So it's been good. And of course I've been back a few times after I left, and he's very cordial, and, was very cordial and, very, I would say probably even more outspoken whenever I was done playing, just because I think getting, he sees me whenever I'm there. It's like, okay, Goodheart did good this game. Goodheart. Well, it's something he could probably hit some off speed a little bit, but things like that is probably what floods his mind. And I get that, then afterwards he's like, oh, how you doing? How's life treating you, kind of thing. So I like I said, that's kind of a difficult question to answer, but he's a good guy. I enjoy playing for him.
You answered it well. And I feel like a lot of people, I get that vibe from them that like, he's never going to be accused of being like a player's coach, like a buddy, like coming in the locker room and messing with you guys. But he seems like he's one of those guys. There's always that respect. Of course, you respect what he's done in his career, the accomplishments and the position he's in, of course. But I think like he's approachable, like a guy that you can go to, but he's not necessarily, I don't think he's ever going to be inauthentic. Like you said, he's not a small talker. He's not just going to be messing around just to mess around. Right. I think he's just if you can help him accomplish the task at hand, cool. But I do get that kind of vibe from him. And of course, like at the end of the day, like he's a solid dude. Like at the end of the, outside, like you said, it's probably easier for him once you get off the baseball field to kind of have some of those conversations. But right. Matt, man, I really appreciate you for kicking it with me for a freaking hour, man. I really did not plan on taking this much of your time. So hope I didn't get you in trouble. I'm not taking you away from any tasks, but I really appreciate your insights and your thoughts, and definitely appreciate your contribution as a Razorback, man. You're a Razorback legend forever in my eyes, man. So I appreciate you for joining the show, man. Let me know whenever you're in Fayetteville. We'll have to kick it.
Sounds good. Hey, it was kind of a slow morning anyway, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on, and it was fun. I love talking baseball and talking about, now, like I said, I wasn't a biased Razorback fan coming into it, but I'll probably be one for the rest of my life now because of what they were able to do for me. So, anytime I can shed some positivity regarding Razorback baseball program, I'd love nothing more.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We appreciate you, and best of luck on your coaching career. I guess you're now a part of the DVH coaching tree with Tony Vitello, Wes Johnson, and all those guys, pretty much. So we're expecting big things from you, man. So appreciate you, man. We'll be cheering for you no matter where you end up, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys for tapping in for another edition of the Baumbastic Podcast. Let's have a beautiful Wednesday, everyone.